All right. I want to talk about inspiration. I have, I think, made it clear in both of the One D&D series that I did that I am not a fan of the new inspiration system. But honestly, this goes a little further. I do not like inspiration in Dungeons and Dragons. And because of the fact that I feel like I did talk about it in both of the glossary parts of the One D&D videos, I kind of feel like this deserves its own video because I do not like inspiration whatsoever. There are good things about it, and I want to mention this. It's not like if you use inspiration and you like using inspiration, go for it. Really, I don't have a problem with you. Enjoy yourself. It's your game. But I do not like the way that inspiration works in the current day and age. There's a reason that Demons of Imanod uses the bullshit point system, which is a system that I made, so don't worry about it. But here's the thing. I want to make this video talking about inspiration, and I want to kind of see if there are people who share the opinion, or if there are people who maybe have other systems that they use. But yeah, so this is going to be a little bit of a rant, I guess. All right. So first of all, let's look at the original implementation of heroic inspiration, right? So heroic inspiration, when you have heroic inspiration, also called inspiration, you can expend it to give yourself advantage on a d20 test. You decide to do so immediately after rolling the d20. That was the original 5th edition implementation of inspiration, right? In addition, how did you get inspiration? Because it's already here. You got inspiration when the DM gave it to you. And the idea behind that was you give inspiration to players who do good role play, who do a heroic action. You give it as a sort of reward. I don't fucking know, right? Inspiration was this sort of an out-of-game reward for players. Which in theory is not a bad thing. There's a lot of systems that do it, right? Savage Worlds does it. Fate does it. I think Call of Cthulhu does it, if I'm not mistaken. Or is that sanity points? That might be sanity points. Anyway, there's a decent chunk of systems that use sort of an inspiration system. Here, the problem is that 5th edition, as we all know, was meant to be a simple crunching system. And what I mean with that is if you compare 5th edition to 3.5 or 4th edition, you would notice that 5th edition is a lot easier, right? Not everything gives you a +1 or a +2 or a -1 or a -2 or whatever, right? There's not like a million bonuses that you have to add up. I will be very honest, I've only played Pathfinder, so I am not going to guarantee you that this opinion is entirely correct. I'm not saying that 3.5 or 4E are bad systems also, by the way. I'm just saying 5th edition was meant, I think, to be an easy system, but still crunchy enough where, like, you know, that wargaming feeling was still there from its original, right? And I think that's why not inspiration, but advantage and disadvantage are in 5th edition, because that's something easy that you can give to someone. It's very easy to just say, hey, you can do this, you can do it with advantage. Now, the original inspiration system I had 2 very big problems with. And one of those was inspiration had a problem of you could only have 1 point of inspiration. Now, to be fair, it's very easy to get around that. You just allow people to have more points of inspiration, which is something that back when I used inspiration, be it very sparingly, I tended to allow. I tended to be like, nah, you can have multiple points, enjoy yourself. Fantasy Grounds actually allows for that, allows for you to increase the amount of inspiration someone can have. But my second problem is also that I feel like inspiration is very weird in where advantage, to me, it's always good to have advantage on something, right? It's always good to have advantage, but I've always found it very weird how some classes get more value out of advantage or out of inspiration than others do. The examples that I usually give is a barbarian has a lot less value out of getting advantage on stuff. The reason for that being they get advantage on half their shit already, right? They get advantage by using reckless attack on their attack rolls. They get advantage on dexterity saving throws if they see them. And technically, you also have, like, you can just rage to get advantage on athletics checks, strength saving throws, strength checks, whatever, right? And compare that to a class like a rogue, right? Rogue doesn't necessarily have any inherent ways to get advantage. It has the hide action as a bonus action, which is it's one thing, and then you have the aim bonus action, which to this day I'm not a fan of. But at the same time, I've always been very heavily... I have no idea where that sentence went. At the same time, Rogue has this thing where they need advantage, right? They need advantage to get their sneak attack off a lot more consistently, right? Okay, some people are now going to say, yeah, okay, but a rogue can technically not have advantage. And, you know, if there's just someone in there, or if you're a swashbuckler and you're just one-on-one, right, you also get your sneak attack. Yeah, but you always get sneak attack if you get advantage. So a rogue gets way more value off of inspiration than a barbarian does. A wizard or a sorcerer doesn't really use inspiration because a lot of their higher level spells, once they start getting to, you know, 3rd, 4th, 5th level even, don't necessarily require them to do an attack roll, right? They're going to be far happier casting spells that force a save that automatically do half damage. So inspiration to me always felt like a little bit of an unbalanced system. Some characters get more value out of it than others. But that's not a problem in and of itself, right? But the reason that I'm talking about these two things is because I want to kind of lay the groundwork for where this goes to, right? Because now we need to talk about One D&D inspiration. Because what did One D&D do? It technically added two things. One, a player character gains heroic inspiration if the character rolls a 1 for a d20 test. That 1 must be on the d20 test used for the test's total, not on a d20 that was re-rolled or discarded. This heroic inspiration, yada, yada, yada. That's one thing, right? So now if you roll a natural 1, you get a point of inspiration. But you do not get it if you don't use the 1. So if you use Halfling Luck to re-roll that 1 and you get a 10, if you have advantage on the roll and you roll a 1 and a 7, if you, I don't know, are there any other examples that I can think of? Not really. If you use a luck point to get rid of your natural 1 and you roll a 20, then, you know, you're not going to get the point of inspiration because you've discarded to 1. You need to actually use the natural 1. Which already has its problems, but I'll leave that for the final part. And then the other part is only 1 at a time. You can never have more than 1 instance of heroic inspiration, right? This is a rule from 5th edition. But if someone gives you, or if something gives you heroic inspiration and you already have it, you can give this to a player character in your group who lacks it. All right. Where do I begin? Let's start with the positive part. This, right? The last part. If something gives you heroic inspiration, you already have it, you can give heroic inspiration to another player. I am not opposed to this. I already mentioned I usually allowed people to have multiple points of inspiration. This is a neat way to kind of get around that, right? You just like, okay, but I already have inspiration. The inspiration doesn't feel lost. If you get it, it's just like, okay, I can give it to someone. Because that was one of the issues I feel with 1 point of inspiration is like, you get the point of inspiration and now you can't really get inspiration until you've used it. I think in the original 5th edition rules, there was even this element of, if you haven't spent the inspiration by the end of the session, it's gone. Which is like stupid in and of itself. Right? And I've personally never been a fan of that. Now, at least, you know, you get the additional point of inspiration, you give it to someone else. Also, it doesn't really say that inspiration lasts until the end of the session anymore. So I feel like it's a lot better in that regard. Be it that you still have that element of certain classes are going to be better off with inspiration than others. And that kind of, I feel like this can be min-maxed. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like people are going to be like, you need to give me the inspiration because I'm the one who gets the most value out of it. And some people are going to be like, oh, but that's toxic behavior. No, sometimes it's just strategic behavior. So I don't know if this is a good thing. I feel like if you give someone inspiration, they should be rewarded for it, right? And giving it to someone else is just this thing. Like, could you imagine that, seeing as it's Christmas time right now anyway, could you imagine that someone gives you a present, but because you already got a present, you need to give that present to someone else? How fucking bad does that feel? Like, okay, sure, everybody likes giving away presents, but it's like, still, there's this element of like, I earned this. Which leads us to the other point of me hating inspiration. This. I don't know which person came up with this idea, but I think you need to be fired. Not necessarily. Maybe you have a reason for it. So, here's the thing, right? If a player rolls a natural 1, they get a point of inspiration. I get where this idea comes from. I actually do. I completely get where this idea comes from. I'm actually going to show you something. Right? Because there's another part that also has this idea very much, which is bardic inspiration from Bard. Right? When another creature within 60 feet of you that you can see or heal fails a d20 test, you can use your reaction to give the creature a bardic inspiration die. The creature rolls that die and adds the number roll to the d20, potentially turning the failure into a success. Right? Now, if I am not mistaken, where is it? Is it not in the base ability? I thought it was in the base ability, which actually probably improves it a little bit. Where is it? I think it's in the subclass, right? Hold up. Huh. There used to be... Here. You can make an ability check, right? If the check still fails, the bardic inspiration isn't expended, right? This idea has started to come up a little bit, right? Where you can't have bad rolls. And I think that's the idea that comes after... that comes behind this, right? Pretty much what Wizards is saying here is you roll a natural 1. A natural 1 is the worst roll, hands down, that you can get on a d20. There is no roll worse than a natural 1 in 99.9% of cases. Maybe there are specific instances where you want to fail the check and then a natural 20 would be worse, but hey. Anyway. A natural 1 is the worst roll you can get on a d20 usually. Right? So what are they saying here? They're saying, we're going to make it so that your worst roll on the die isn't that bad. We are going to give you a point of inspiration because you rolled a 1. And I'm just sitting there like, yeah, but that doesn't solve the problem. First of all, I don't think that's a problem. I think that bad rolls just add to the story. Failure adds to the story, right? This is one of the reasons why I'm an advocate for having death in your stories, however macabre that might sound. Failure is a part of a story. You cannot rise to greatness if you don't start with some sort of a failure. Why do you think there's this quote-unquote hatred against Mary Sue and Gary Stews, right? Because starting out perfect is dumb, right? You need to be able to fail some things, which is where I think you need to see the fun in rolling a natural 1 sometimes. And I have problems with that myself too. I'm not going to disagree with that. I've had moments where I just roll 3, 4, 4, 3, 2, 6, 3, and it's like, okay, I'm just rolling like shit today. But that's the thing, right? Like, bad rolls should exist. And 2, this does not take away the fact of bad rolls. This just means that now a natural 1 gives you a point of inspiration. And the idea is like, yeah, but now a natural 2 just becomes your worst roll, right? In, let's say, 90% of cases, you are now going to roll a natural 2, and it is going to be worse than rolling a natural 1. Because at least if you rolled a natural 1, you would have gotten the point of inspiration. And that's the part that, to me, makes it really weird. Sure, there's very specific cases where you roll a 2, you have a +8 bonus, and the DC is 10. Sure, and in that case, it's better to roll a 2 than a 1, unless the roll doesn't mean anything, right? But you're not making this better. You're not fixing the problem in the largest amount of cases, right? That's 1. 2, and I think this is also very important, this is going to very much make it difficult to draw a line of when do you ask for a check, right? Because here's the thing. You have to see, and this is not counting advantage, disadvantage, luck points and whatnot, but technically you roll a natural 1 in 20%, in 1 out of 20 cases, or in other words, in 5% of cases. This means that if you have 100 d20 rolls, on average, 5 of them are natural 1s, the same way that on average 5 of them are natural 20s. Right? Okay. So why is that a thing? Well, because that means the more rolls you do, the more that average amount of natural 1s is going to increase. If you roll 100 rolls, you're on average going to get 5. If you roll 200 rolls, on average you're going to get 10. 315, right? So the more rolls you do, the more natural 1s you are going to roll. So what's going to happen is, there's a very good chance that players are going to start asking for rolls for dumb shit. Why? Because then it doesn't matter if they roll a natural 1, right? I want to do a drinking contest with that fucker. And the DM's like, okay, cool, let's do it. Lets you roll 3 saving throws, you roll a natural 1 on one of them. Hey, you get a point of inspiration because you rolled a natural 1 on the save. Even though you losing this fucking drinking contest costs you, what, 3 gold pieces? Maybe? It's not necessarily going to affect the rest of the story. There are specific cases where that's a thing, where now the DM uses this to his advantage, but whatever, right? This system is so filled with holes. There are so many problems with it. This does not work, right? Pretty much, I've already told my players this. If at any point in time I do a One D&D campaign, I am not playing with heroic inspiration. I am sticking to my bullshit point system, right? Is that a fair system? No, but I do know my players have been enjoying it because they got out of shit they shouldn't have gotten out of with their fucking D4s and D6s. And it's an interesting little, like, risk-reward system, which is just fun. So, to kind of close out this video, this is my biggest piece of feedback to Wizards of the Coast. And I am probably, if I don't forget to fill out the feedback form, I am probably going to put this in here. Heroic inspiration needs to fucking go. This is not a good system. You are going to create problems with this. But anyway, that's just my opinion. If you guys agree, leave me a comment, I guess. If you don't agree, also leave me a comment. Pretty much I'm asking you to leave a comment because, I don't know, because. Bye.